How you deal with a client is totally in your control. How you lead your team, like some of you have adversity. Oh man, my team's not that good. I have this problem employee or this problem team member, stuff like that. Well, it's totally internal because you either are tolerating it, allowing it, nurturing it, or you're going to handle it. Choice. Hi, this is Coach Joe Lukacs, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to bring guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether it's Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go ahead and get that claimed. Smash the like button and subscribe. And please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode. Hi, it's your Coach Joe Lukacs, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Obviously, I'm back from Utah and love shooting some videos out there for you guys. We survived the hurricanes. It is full steam ahead till the end of the year. This episode, I want to talk to you guys about adversity, which is not a popular subject. It's not a fun subject. But if you live any kind of life, if you're building any type of business, adversity is going to show up, right? And so what I want to do in this episode is kind of break down the two different types of adversity, right? How to reframe them in your mind so you can stay effective, and then some strategies to either reduce them or kind of push through them, right, until the other side, right, which I think is really important. So with that said, let's talk about the two types first. In my career, I have found that there are two basic types of adversity, internal and external. Internal adversities are things that you have control over, right? So if you have bad habits, if you have negative associations, if you have a poor or bad or negative mental diet, right? If you enable people around you not to be their best, these are all things you have direct control over, right? And influence. So we're going to talk about that. Also, certain client relationships, what we're going to call internal. Even though you don't control another person, you influence that person, okay? So that's internal adversity. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. External adversity. These are things you don't control, right? Global economic factors, geopolitical scenarios, right? The weather, especially here in Florida these days. Politics, religion, society, right? We don't control those, right? They are external. That's external. That's stuff that shows up at your doorstep. Whether you invited it or not, it's going to show up. So I think what's really important, first off, you have to have a certain belief set. Belief set number one, adversity is going to show up at your door when you least expect it or least welcome it, right? Number two, all situations are temporary. And this is key because some of you, and let's just talk about maybe different scenarios you've had in your life or maybe you experienced in this business, right? I can go back to certain very intense periods of time, right? And we don't have to look too far back. We can look back and some of you are like you almost forgot it's in the rearview mirror, but can we all go back for a moment to the spring of 2020, right? That was the definition of external adversity. Pandemics, by definition, are external, right? If you think about your life in that moment, right, when the world was shutting down and offices were shutting down, a lot of you, because I talked to my clients about this, so I know it's pervasive, like, how do we do this? How do we make money? How do we grow a business? How do we take care of our clients? Are we going to be in business? How do we not die, right? Fast forward now, 4 years, right, before the world started opening back up again, right, fall of 2020. 4 years later, you can remember it, but you don't remember the emotional intensity of that moment because it was temporary. And those distinctions are what you have to draw upon when you face new external adversity. Yes, it will change things, and some of that changes will be permanent, but the condition itself is temporary. Okay? Really, really important. So, number one, it's going to show up. Number two, it's temporary, right? Number three, there are always strategies to mitigate adversity. Mitigate does not mean eliminate. Okay? Many of my clients, and we'll just stick on because I think it's a good frame of reference. Many of my clients in 2020 had great business years. They grew their business. Their revenue was up. Their income was up. We were probably one of the few professions, if you think about it. The attorneys' courts were closed. CPAs, tax returns had to happen, obviously. But we were probably one of the few. I mean, if you were in the personal services business, like beauty, haircut, restaurant, bar, travel, any of that stuff, man, you suffered. You suffered a lot, right? So we found a strategy, and now what's the byproduct of that? A lot of you run virtual. You have a lot of virtualness in your businesses. Zoom reviews, right? Remote employees, all those things, which was all conceptual January 1st, 2020. Now they're mainstream. Okay? So it's about what you do, right? So I'll give you some examples of some things I want you to consider. And these are, I want to be very clear, this is not negative thinking. This is preparation. All right? Like I'll give you my example. I live in Melbourne, Florida, which if you haven't looked on a map, smack dab in the middle of the state, East Coast, right? We've had hurricanes. We just got done with a hurricane, Milton, a week ago. We can change, right? Now, we didn't suffer any damage here for the house or power, stuff like that. But I'll tell you right now, if I lost my house, even temporary, which is my place of business, here's my game plan. First of all, we're in the cloud, and we learned that back in 2004, 2005. We moved all of our files, all of our accounting, everything on the cloud, because if I couldn't get my hard drive backups out of the house in time, right, kind of doesn't matter, right? By the way, so step one, preparation, right? Bunkered the house down, new doors, no windows, natural gas fired, small commercial generator, new roof, strapped, screwed down. Like I bulletproofed this house. It's a fortress, right? But even if I left my fortress, what would I do? I would take the first flight to Atlanta, Georgia. I would rent a room around the airport, probably at the Marriott Gateway Airport or the Renaissance Gateway Airport. And I would set up shop because it's only an hour flight back. They have several a day. And so I can go back and forth. The rest of the team would pack up the house, the animals, the belongings, if this house was totally trashed. And they would meet me in Atlanta, and we would set up temporary shop there and to figure out our next move. Game plan's already established. So here's my question for you. If your place of business, personally or professionally, didn't matter, ceased to exist, a flood, hurricane, a tornado, a fire, whatever it is, but in the space of 24 to 48 hours, your place of business ceased to be functional for you, what is your game plan? what would you do? And is it in writing? Have you thought it out? Have you done the research? Like, I could take all my computers and throw them out my window here and go down to Best Buy, pick up a new computer, pick up a new Mac, and I'm in business in 30 minutes. Just got to remember how to get to all my logons and all my passwords, right? That's the way you've got to think in this world. So for external, it's strategy. Not that you eliminate it, but you mitigate it and you have a strategy to stay effective throughout it. Okay? So these are things that show up in your world that we have no control over. Now, what's interesting from a human behavior psychology perspective, a lot of human beings focus on the externals they can't control, right? They'll focus on the news. They'll focus on politics. They'll focus on the economy. And you don't run the Fed. You don't anoint. You don't have, we participate willingly or not in this, but you really don't have any direct control over this. And I think what frustrates a lot of human beings is setting themselves up to be frustrated because they want to see something different, but you're really powerless to change it. So you don't have to like things, but you have to accept things. So that's the other belief. I don't have to like things. I don't have to like the fact that hurricane's coming. I mean, who would? Unless you're a storm chaser. But I accept the fact it's coming. I'll deal with whatever shows up, right? And that's adversity. The only way you don't get adversity in your life if you don't live a life, right? Now, let's talk about internal adversity. This is a little bit different because you have control of this. This is by choice, consciously or not. Most time it's unconscious choice, okay? So let's say you've been in a really stressed out negative state, or you have some internal adversity, right? Well, where's it coming from, right? Do you have things going on in your world that you made choices on? Like a great example, and I'll give you a very micro piece of internal adversity. Let's say somebody gets up on a Monday morning and they don't feel well, and it's code for a hangover. Well, that's temporary internal adversity. Why? Number one, it's on them. Number two, it's temporary. Number three, we can look back at a behavior, probably Sunday football, probably drinking during Sunday football too much, right? And not taking care of yourself. And hence, you're going to struggle through money. That's a bit of internal adversity. That would be a very simple example of that, right? Internal adversity is behavior-based. Either you're doing things to put you in that position or you're not doing things to make sure you don't get in a position, right? Hi, Coach Joe Lukacs here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode. Internal adversity is when you're not taking care of your business, right? And then all of a sudden it's a cause and effect, right? So basically, if you don't take care of your body, right, you're not going to be as healthy, you're not going to have as much energy, you're going to be more susceptible to illnesses, disease, stuff like that. That's internal. I know somebody will say, but wait a second, Joe, I've got this DNA thing, or I've got her, and I understand we all have things, right? But we have a lot more direct control over it. I mean, you can have a bad gene in your DNA, but by diet, nutrition, and lifestyle, you can mitigate a lot of that. So you have control over that, right? How you deal with a client is totally in your control, right? How you lead your team, like some of you have adversity. Oh man, my team's not that good. I have this problem employee or this problem team member, stuff like that. Well, that's totally internal. Because you either are tolerating it, allowing it, nurturing it, or you're going to handle it. Choice. Right? And what's fascinating is most human beings will focus on external things they can't control. As when where focus goes, that's where energy goes, that's where attention goes, right? That's where the mind goes. And there are things over here internally they can fix. But they take no action towards it. You know why? It's uncomfortable. Oh, I have to have a conversation with my team member. I have to put them on notice, or I have to coach them up, or whatever it happens to be, right? Like it's easier to stay frustrated with something than to fix it. So here are the beliefs around internal. Number one, I created it, I can fix it. So if you have internal adversity, you created it, right? Again, maybe not consciously, but you created it. So what you want to do is first off own it. Hey, I created this, I can fix it. Number two, and if you're struggling with this is a strategy I use. So I will, and it's like 5 minutes. It's not like, like we don't need to go take a course in this, okay? Really, really simple. Get out a piece of paper and write all the things that this is causing you. As you tolerate this, as you live with this, write down all the effects it's having negatively. You're losing money, losing sleep, unhappiness. Like really kind of be honest with you. You don't have to share with anybody, but you write it down, right? And you really look at what it's costing you, not just maybe economically, but really more emotionally, right? And then writing this, it's almost like a concept of the Ben Franklin piece, right? So on the other side of the page, I want you to write, once you fix this, and we'll talk strategy in a second, so it's a three-parter. Part one, what's the cost now and in the future? Number two, if it's fixed, when it's fixed, what does it look like? What's the cost? What do you gain? And then below, brainstorm strategies to fix it. I've yet to see a situation in my world that there's not now, does that mean it's going to fix it overnight? No. But there's always a strategy or strategies to fix, mitigate internal adversity. I'm not saying they're easy. I'm not saying they're pleasant, but they're available and they're doable. So part one, pain. Part two, pleasure. Part three, strategy. It's literally 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, this is the power of this. In 5 minutes, you can totally reframe this scenario, whatever this scenario is internally, get leverage on yourself to want to fix it, and then give yourself strategies to actually execute the fix, right? I'll give you another example. Internal adversity. I've been allowing a client, right, basically steamroll me or, steamroll my team, right? And it's causing a lot of angst. When they call in, it stresses me out, stresses my team out, right? Stuff like that. Okay, so number one, pain. I don't like the person. They stress me out. They stress my team out. When it's time for their reviews, I wish they would cancel them or reschedule them. My team and I breathe a sigh of relief, right? Yes, I'm making some money, but I'm paying a terrible emotional price, stuff like that, right? So pain. Bucket number two. Let's just say this person was either we reframed them or we graduated them, which is code for fire them. Well, how would your world be like? I'd be happier, my team be happier, da-da-da-da. Yeah, I would lose a little revenue, but I would have a better mindset. Third part, strategy. Step number one, have a meeting. Step number two, inside that meeting, and I'll give you guys some frameworks real quick. Hey, I don't think you're happy with us, or I don't think you're happy being a client because every time you interact with our team, every time I see you, you seem to always be, challenging things, not appreciating things, being negative about things and stuff like that. I'm just wondering, would you be better served with a different advisor? And two things happen. One of two things. Number one, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with this, but hear me out. Remember I said, internal adversity is unconscious? A lot of times this person is totally unaware how they're operating with you. They didn't realize that they're being an ass. It's true. A lot of people are not that self-aware. Don't give them that much credit, okay? So in some cases, by you just kind of calling them out on it, and notice we didn't say like, oh, hey man, like you're treating my staff like terrible, and me like, hey man, you just don't seem happy here. Here's why we say that, right? Would you be better off with somebody else? It's not 50-50, but in a lot of the cases, by just calling the client out on it in a very professional, caring manner, they'll totally reframe themselves, and that's beautiful. And now you're going to have literally one of the best clients you've ever had in a very high-functioning state. It's beautiful. The second situation is like, hey, and you graduate them. You're winning either way, right? So either outcome or we win, right? But here's the thing. A lot of you will tolerate that relationship out of scarcity which is a form of internal adversity, where you're setting your mindset to, there's not a lot of business out there, I got to keep this person, or you have some, I say this respectfully, some warped sense of loyalty. Okay? Again, I'm going to go down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but it's kind of what we do here. I have a lot of beliefs, right? I have several core beliefs about business. In my game, and your game is really no different than my game, you can never let your clients dictate your business. Okay? It is a collaborative partnership, and it has to serve all parties. So in an advisor-client relationship, who are the stakeholders? Obviously, you, the advisor, leader, owner, or stakeholder. Obviously, the client is a stakeholder. But there's another stakeholder, which is your team. And if you've got somebody harshly treating your team and you allow it, you don't have their back. You know, I separated, I think I told the story a couple of years ago. I separated from a very long-term client who was a tremendous referral source for me for years because he threw my team under the bus. And I had a choice. I can either allow that to occur and say nothing, or have my team's back. And as a leader, I made the right choice, not business choice. The business choice would have been what? Sweep it under the rug, keep getting paid, everything is cool, like it never happened. But that's not the right ethical, moral, or leadership choice. So I did what needed to be done. Looking back, a year and a half later, I wouldn't change a thing how I did it. Totally right. And that's what it is to handle adversity. Sometimes, if it's external, again, you have no control over it, right? Time will handle it. If you just ignore it. Like, it kind of ignore it, it'll fix itself or diminish itself and we move on. But internal stuff, internal adversity, like, you got to grab the bull by the horns. Because rarely, and I mean rarely, does that just self-mitigate away. Like, you got to go solve that problem. And I gave you my 3 steps to do so. So that's what I want to share with you guys today. It's something that, again, it's part of the game. It just is. So we have to be aware of it, okay? So I want to first of all thank you for giving me the opportunity to come into your world and share some of these thoughts, some of this wisdom, some of this advice, some of this guidance I've accumulated now over 30 years. And if you're not a member of Magellan Network, there's a basic membership. It's free. It is, I won't say probably, it is the best, FREE. I'm going to share with you some of my best stuff. Why? Because if you're ever looking for a coach, if you're ever in that market or think you want to level up your game, I'd like to be your first phone call or email. All right? So thanks for watching and listening. Have a great week. See you all again in 7 days. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game both personally and professionally.